Let's start today with a simple truth. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson lied. Exactly. That's nothing new and would normally only be enough for a side note at daybreak. We've known the London swindler long enough, and so do British voters. The word they use most often to describe Johnson in a recent poll is liar. Furthermore, incompetent and untrustworthy are at the forefront, framed by Casper or idiot. As far as the expected mood on the island, not to forget clown. It's still news today because a lot has happened in Great Britain since Brexit and the ensuing debacle. In the end, everything seemed forgotten. The empty supermarket shelves, the queues at the petrol stations, the fear of freezing in winter without heating. Even the many deaths caused by the coronavirus among the British temporarily faded into the background. Britain's leading clown was suddenly enjoying plaudits and acclaim even from critics. He became a statesman, he transformed himself from a rhetoric to a helper in need. He gave the beleaguered Ukraine urgently needed weapons and military trainers even before the Russian attacks began, so quickly and unbureaucratically that the contrast to the hesitant chancellor in Germany could hardly be greater. While the German government bureaucracy ponders when a weapon is defensive, when heavy or perhaps light enough to be shipped to Kiev, the British deliver what the magazines will allow. To perfect it all, Johnson strolled through the Ukrainian capital with Volodymyr Zelensky, which resulted in strong images and good press. And the trip was also a courageous signal. The British Prime Minister soared to unimagined heights. But he hasn't outgrown himself. Because back home on the island, it's not difficult to recognize the populist tricks. Johnson and his team, who once campaigned against Eastern European migrant workers in the Brexit election campaign, find it better to give than to receive. Xenophobia paved the way for them to power, behind which they can hardly go back. That's why you see them splurge when it comes to arms deliveries to the Ukraine, but they would prefer to refuse to take in war refugees. I'm just saying visas. Hardly more than 3,200 Ukrainians have made it to Great Britain so far. For comparison, the number is estimated at up to 60,000 in Berlin alone. The topic is uncomfortable for the newly minted statesman in Downing Street, but hardly anyone talks about it anymore because after his Ukraine mission, an old scandal catches up with him again. It's Partygate. The Brits had to follow draconian corona rules during the lockdown, while the Prime Minister's official residence celebrated late into the night. Outraged Parliament tried to placate Johnson with his usual ploy. Denial, wait and see, a half-baked apology here, a bit of contrition here, and the hope that eventually people will lose interest. And then he miscalculated. Lying to Parliament is a criminal offence in Britain. They let the fuzzy Boris get away with a lot, but that was too much. Numerous families have to mourn corona deaths, could not accompany their relatives on their deathbed, were not allowed to appear at the funeral. It is a very personal anger that erupts at the Master of Muddle Through as he tries to explain why he and his buddies have not been subject to the rules that weighed so heavily on everyone else. It's no longer just a handful of party animals at a few illegal parties. Justice is at stake now, and the British are sensitive to that. That's why Parliament was voting on Thursday on whether to drag the Prime Minister before a committee of inquiry. It remains to be seen whether this will bring something in the end and even if it will be of any use. But his arrogance has caught up with Boris Johnson and is now being blamed on him on a daily basis. The statesman has shrunk back to being a windbag. The simple truths remain irrefutable, and liars just remain liars. And just to make it very blatantly clear, Boris Johnson for a long time is a liar. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.